Much indeed. I think never a truer word spoken. He does come across as a misogynist, and of course, I think it was who was it that said, it was Rosie Duffield, I think, said that Keir Starmer's got a problem with women. He doesn't really know how to talk to them, and doesn't know how to deal with them really, and generally speaking, is kind of frightened of them. And when we see his many mistakes, and remember his great sort of ridiculousness about Rachel Reeves being the first woman chancellor when he made that announcement that she was going to be making her first budget speech, and young women and girls will be looking up to her. He had this sort of Richter smile on his face as if it was some incredible achievement that he'd found a woman with a brain. You know, I mean, he really, I think, is a misogynist.
Yeah, well, it's true, actually, now that you mentioned
it. A lot of lefties are.
It does come across, yeah, amongst the many problems, it is a streak of misogyny in the left. You always wonder what he would be like on his first date with a girl, because he's got that awkwardness that we're talking about, the awkwardness he has with Trump, with other people in general. It seems to be amplified when he's around around women.
It is absolutely right. So let's talk about the Green Brigade, because again we had the Climate Change Committee yesterday on the front page of the Telegraph telling everyone we should be driving electric cars, we shouldn't be flying as much. They want to put more taxes on flying. They want to make you eat less meat. They want you basically to put a heat pump in your house and get rid of all gas boilers. It's now been proven by the people that do these sort of calculations that Rachel Reeves will have an £8 billion black hole if those rules are basically followed, because revenues from fuel duty would be so much lower in 2030 compared to 2023 that they'd have no money.
You couldn't make this up.
Right.
This is such basic economics. Oh, we rely on fuel duty for so much. Getting rid of cars that require fuel means we'll have less of this money.
Exactly.
It's not rocket science.
It's not
you know,
difficult.
this could be in the back of a matchbox. You could put this stuff out there. And apparently now, of course, there's going to be, and now they're thinking about maybe charging every car mile for mile. However far you drive, that'll be the new fuel duty.
Right.
Can you imagine the British driver accepting this?
Sadiq Khan has been denying that he's been planning to charge per mile driving in London for about the last 2 years, all the while having asked for consultants to set up a programme to see how it could be done. So there's no question that they're certainly looking into it, and I'm sure that because they've milked the motorists for so many different ways, that's the only way they've got left, that they can do them per mile.
And I'm sure it's one of the calculations people who bought electric vehicles did.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it'll be cheaper for us because we won't have to deal with the fuel duty.
They're incredibly smug, people with electric car vehicles, they say, because it doesn't cost us any money. We don't have to register them for road tax. And you go, well, that's not going to be the case forever, is it? Soon and already now, I think the government is putting some kind of electric vehicle tax on them, which they're going to have to pay. But in more electric vehicle news, Aston Martin has delayed the rollout of its first fully electric vehicle because they just say that the market isn't ready for it. They were going to launch it next year. Now they're saying it's going to be planned for the later part of the decade, which probably means never.
Never, yeah. That's kicked into the long grass, driven into the long grass, I should say.
Yeah.
We've also had Tesla sales are not doing very well at the moment in Europe as well. And quite frankly, I don't know how they can be in a city like London, where population density is so high. Anything that used to be a house is now 3 flats.
Yes.
How on earth are you going to have sufficient charging for that on a simple London street?
Unless you've got a driveway, and not many people in London do, you know, it's pretty difficult. And a lot of people, if they live in a rural area as well, it's not that easy to put in an electric charging point just for one car. You know, it's quite expensive to do. So, you know, there is no capability around the country for the charging of many more electric cars than they've got at the moment. And so much of the statistical information around them is fake as well, because an awful lot of electric cars are fleet cars. They get bought by companies because they get a tax break from the government. That tax break is going to disappear soon. The actual personal buying of electric cars is way down.
Yeah, now I have to say, I like going in EV cars because they're so quiet.
Yeah.
I mean, mind you, then you get traffic accidents, people can't see a car coming.
Right.
So there are, but I don't think we're there yet where the technology means you can have the rollout. I quite like them being silent and not so noisy, but I think, you know, the idea that we're going to have these by 2030 and change, I think it's
I
for the
disagree
birds.
with you entirely. I've got a very noisy car and I like it making a noise, and when I put my foot down it makes an even bigger noise.
Yeah, that's why I hate it.
Oh, really?
That and motorbikes. I can't stand the noise of a motorbike. Electric motorbikes I would sign up for immediately.
Well, Dale Vince has got one of those. They only cost about 21,000 quid. Turbines on the front page of the Times. This is an interesting one. This is also part of the sort of green agenda. Apparently, now I can't explain this because I'm not an ornithologist or a scientist, but apparently if you paint wind turbines black, birds don't fly into them in quite so many numbers. And apparently Donald Trump was speaking about this, and he was being his usual self. He was saying that there are so many birds getting killed by these turbines in America that the coyotes are getting so fat they need Ozempic, because they're eating that many birds that are coming out of the sky.
Of all the things I knew about Trump, I didn't realise he was a twitcher, an ornithologist.
Exactly right. So apparently Defra has been concerned that foraging areas used by seabirds can be very large, and that the boosting of offshore wind farms could therefore have adverse impacts on them.
Apparently.
This is again why these things are not green. They kill birds at a rate of knots.
Well, we're spending so much money on these bat tunnels and fish discos and everything else that we pay money on, and you have 100,000 birds a year being killed by these turbines, and no one does anything about that. So, and who'd thought of all the things Trump and Starmer will be discussing, whether you can paint the turbines black?
But it seems, I mean, I don't even know how you would know that. And why would birds not fly into turbines because they're black?
I suppose because white is reflected in some way. Then you have the clouds and everything else. You don't get many black things in the sky, so that's quite easy to avoid.
Yeah, I suppose not. But can you imagine now the cost of all of these wind turbines that have been put up all over the country and sending some poor guy up there to paint them black?
But also,
how long is that going to take?
Then they really will resemble the Eye of Sauron. You know, these black things in the sky just looking down over you.
It'd be horrific.
Quite sinister. The dark satanic mills of Jerusalem,
really will be.
Literally.
Well, if you look at
mills.
somewhere like Dungeness, where there's a whole wind farm, which you can see actually from the cliffs of Sussex, kind of just above Hastings, you can look far off into the distance. That's going to look really, really weird if they're all black. Because when you see them a long way away, it looks quite soothing. You don't like them when you get close up because they make a horrible noise. But if they're black, they will look really awful. That is horrendous.
Sinister.
Yeah. Now here's a good one for those people out there with a sort of a penchant for science. Page 3 of the Daily Mail. Eyes up for a full house. Apparently, the greatest show on Earth, known by astronomers as Planetary Parade, is the unusual celestial event which sees Mars, Jupiter, Mercury, Venus, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune all lining up in the night sky. Apparently, you'll be able to see all these planets in most parts of Britain, if it's not too cloudy, sometime tomorrow evening. I don't know what happens when the planets align, but I feel like something happens. I mean, is it like the Ides of March or something? Will terrible events befall us, or will something good happen? I don't know.
Well, yeah, Starmer will be reading his tea leaves to see how that's going to impact.
Apparently, it hasn't happened since 1982.
Every time one of these things happens, I live in an apartment building and I've got a roof terrace. I go up to the roof, and there's always clouds.
Right.
I've gone every single time, and I never see anything. So,
you can never see it in London, really. There's too much light pollution. But I mean, I'll be in the country, so I may well be able to see something. It feels like it must mean something. You know what I mean? I'm not saying I'm superstitious, but the alignment...
Well, we always say that the planets aligned and then everything went well, right?
Yes.
So, yes, maybe...
That's what we say.
If you're going to buy a lottery ticket, do it today.
Yeah, maybe that's what we should be doing. What else have we got? Where are we? Fly tipping surges to a new record. Daily Mail, page 15. Now, this is entirely due to the fact that councils now no longer bother collecting your bins, and there's some now speaking about only collecting them once a month, as opposed to once a fortnight. So it's not that surprising, is it, that basically fly tipping has reached a record 1.5 million cases last year alone.
Yeah, I mean, the fact is, nobody wants stinking food and other things outside their houses for 2 weeks, let alone for a month. It's unforgivable. I mean, I think we are one of the worst countries in Europe for fly tipping because so little is done by the councils to actually try to enforce stopping of all of this. Yeah. It's a disgrace, and there's no excuse that you're having your rubbish picked up every month, but you would think in an effort to try to change that, they would have a more sensible policy on rubbish collection. But it just goes broader than that, actually. It's more than just councils. This is about antisocial behaviour. Yeah. This is about... No one feels shame in this country any longer. Nobody, you see it with people littering on the streets. Yeah. You see it with graffiti. You see the way people...
their feet on the seats on the trains.
People leaving behind, banana skins and crisp packets on buses and trains. Everywhere you go, no one is shamed and no one feels any obligation to this country. Yeah. That's what you get when you have low social trust. Yes. We used to be high trust societies.
We did.
Where you judge people and people felt ashamed. You don't have that anymore. Right. Our society is breaking down.
I think so, yeah. I mean, more often than not, people are much ruder to one another. They bundle into you. I've noticed an awful lot of times now when you're on a tube train, people get on the train before you've got off. There's no kind of, like stand back and let people get off first. There's none of that. It's all very selfish. And litter's always been a problem in this country, though, hasn't it? I mean, I always used to marvel as a child, travelling to Europe and travelling to other countries, where littering is not anything like the problem it is here.
Well, litter was a big issue in the 70s 70s and 80s, but from the late 90s, 2000s to actually we got over it. Mass immigration is behind a lot of it because it's simply not in the culture of many parts of the third world to do that. I was just at a wedding in Calcutta, and I went down into the poorer areas for a tour there. And literally, the streets are just piled high. You get this in Africa as well. They don't have rubbish bins. Just everything is there. So you can't blame them if they're coming here. They're not taught British manners and style. They're going to litter here as well. It's just people are doing what they did back home. And when you have a city like London, which is only 37% white British, you can't be surprised if people are bringing their customs, however disgusting we might find them.
And also, whenever you see a bin, generally speaking, in London, it's
all full up.
Nobody actually bothers to empty it. So that's another big problem as well. Coming up, we've got some more stuff to do.